You are listening to the Bring Joy Forward podcast. Conversations to explore, heal, and grow. You can find us on bringjoyforward.com and join us in our community group on Facebook. We now take you to the episode. Thank you for joining us. Hi, and welcome to the Bring Joy Forward podcast. I am Shannon, and I am joined by a really cool cast of characters today. I've got Taylor from whimsymachine.media, Tristan from Blatant Arcana, and Jonny from TalkingXP. They are all members of the gaming industry, and we're going to talk to you today about the health benefits and of collaborative storytelling and how that plays through. So I thought I'd start by just giving everybody a second to introduce themselves and what it is that they have going on in their collective creative areas at the moment. So Taylor, why don't you start us out?
Sure. My name is Taylor Currey. You might also see me around as Taylor Smith. That was from before I got married. I publish games as Whimsy Machine Media. My flagship game is Spell the RPG, which is a role-playing game that uses letter tiles that you draw and rearrange for a what you spell is what you cast magic system, which is something I'm really proud of. I've got a lot of first-time gamers converted with this system, but I also have a ton of other games ranging from, those nice books that fit on your shelf to the weird little one-pagers that I have on Itch.io, as well as a couple of games that do deal with mental health specifically, like We Love the Void, which uses cognitive behavioral therapy as a mechanic and references existentialism in a positive light, as well as 1200 Words, which is a solo experimental. It's one of the things that I call a reading game. It's not super playable, but it's an experience. Oh, hey, you have it.
I do, in fact.
I enjoy creating games. I also am a bit of a writer as well, and I have a book of riddles on Kickstarter, but I'll keep the promo to a minimum.
No, thank you for sharing. We want everybody to get a little bit of a feel for who you are and what you've got going on. Tristan, you want to jump in next?
Yeah, I'm Tristan. I usually go by Latent Architect online, but some people know me as Tristan if they're familiar. I'm part of Latent Arcana. I'm the artist and art director for all of their projects as of right now, including our flagship game, which is Through the Stars, which is a narrative-focused sci-fi tabletop role-playing game. And that came out just about 6 months ago at this point. So we have another project coming up here soon. I'm looking forward to that. And lots of things that are outside of the tabletop field, but also more to come in the tabletop field. So that's me.
Awesome. Thank you. And I am having a blast playing Through the Stars as well. It's I'm playing a Groot-ish character in there and just having a ball. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that was similar to what I started with.
I was like, how could I not be Groot? Jonny, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've going on?
Yeah, I'm Jonny. I run TalkingXP. My flagship thing is Ravenloft Misfits, which is a Curse of Strahd actual play, where I am heavily homebrewing everything with my own stuff, along with stuff that I found on the internet from all of the more prominent homebrew folks on like Reddit and stuff like that. But outside of that, I also have a tutorial guide for how to play Candela Obscura, where I have a playlist on YouTube on how to play, and then a bunch of actual plays that I've actually ran, including one that I'm going to be publishing soon, but also, just like Taylor, I'm not going to get into that. But I also played Daggerheart, and I'm making some videos about that as well. I'm more on the playing side of the industry rather than the creation side of the industry in terms of making the TTRPGs. I'm usually the one playing them on a stream and showing people how to do it.
And I've experienced that myself, and Jonny is awesome at what he does. I think that the gaming industry in general, like I said, gets a bad rap for some of the old school thinking about what a tabletop RPG is. And so I like to do what I can to try to, spread the message. It's brought me so much joy. There's so many benefits to it. Actually, I pulled a survey just for, an article just for a quick list. Emory University kind of broke it down really nicely, I thought, into 6 categories. It's fun. What really, I would just stop there, but you can improve your social skills, reduce stress, promote critical thinking, learn valuable life lessons, and you boost your sensory motor skills. And it's beneficial, I think, even more so for adults than kids, because adults forget how to play. And we need that more than the kids, because we're dealing with life on a daily basis and a lot of heavy things. And if you lose that sense of wonder and sense of play, everything else can just be so much heavier. So that act of jumping into a TTRPG and, the putting together a character and going into a different world, and then you take that and you add it to collaboratively telling a story and working with other people to, get from point A to point B and just have fun with it. There's so much more that kind of comes out of that. So I wanted to start there, and just kind of touch on your experiences with it. And as I do that, I've got a couple of things in here that I pulled from your own stuff that you when I stalked you on the internet.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and found some of the things that you wanna do. So, um, on Taylor's site, says "we" when talking about projects because he often works with teams of fantastic creators and also because it sounds less lonely. And that's amazing. So I kinda wanna jump off of that, like,
Sure.
a lot of why we play, right?
Yeah. So I think that's always kind of funny because it comes from that space of having to write that third person or that detached bio of, you always kind of present like who this person is. And a lot of times like, no, this is just me talking about myself. This is where we are. I do work with a lot of creators. I used to really like art, but like many things, as I left high school a long time ago, I kind of realized that there are certain hobbies that I had to sort of prioritize. I gave up theater; it broke my heart, but I, there are those certain priorities in hobbies. And long story short, I hire artists instead of providing art from my own books, and that's something that's really rewarding for me. I love working with an artist and giving them an idea, and seeing that come to life, finding that balance of how much direction versus freedom do you like, and seeing those ideas and representations come to life. It is just feels super cool as a creator. So Whimsy Machine as a company, as a business, is just me. But with artists, with editors, even with my graphic designers, Fight Item Run was a project that is inspired by old school TTRPGs. So I got really into making these pixel art layouts, and my graphic designer got really into making the book sort of feel like the guide manual from your old PlayStation 1 or Nintendo. You open the case and it's actually got a manual with the pictures of it in there that you can only usually see the sprites of the monsters, but like, oh, this is what they actually look like. That was the feeling. And I'm a little bit, graphic design is my passion. Canva is my friend. I am not that capable of those kind of layouts. So being able to work with those people in that collaborative way, super rewarding. And I think they really help elevate the games beyond something that I can do on my own. So in that way, it is a we. And the other way, I can't design in a vacuum. Games are even solo RPGs. When I make games that are meant to be played alone, that feedback of this is what I'm working on, having somebody to talk to, and bounce ideas from, and being able to see what that play experience looks like, one, outside of my own mind, because when you're writing mechanics, when you're writing rules, it all exists in your head, but for everybody else, it only exists on the paper. And so having that feedback of, what are you talking about? You kind of jumped all over the place on this. And I'm like, oh yeah, because I got to take it out of here. But also just fielding it out, seeing what things are what are interesting to people. Several of my games I made out of inspiration from friends or just like mutuals. The We Love the Void I referenced before, a mutual on Twitter was like, I hear a lot about existential dread and cosmic horror. What about existential positivity? What would that even look like? And that clicked in my brain, and it's like, I love that idea. And so that inspiration and those inspirations in different places, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. So it's we, but also I like to make silly jokes sometimes. So that's also what it is.
Yeah. Well, and I loved that because it is we, right? And the collaborative storytelling aspect of it is we. So like you're talking about, you gave up theater, but isn't that what we're all really doing every time we show up to play, right?
Yeah, that's the secret.
We're
If you
yeah.
want to create, if you want all of the creative hobbies without giving up any of them, do role playing, because it is all of them. You get like an artist in the group too. They start drawing pictures of you draw pictures of your character. Oh, I love it. It's so good.
I never knew how to use Photoshop, Canva, Premiere Pro, Audition, any of those like creative apps and stuff like that. Never knew how to use it until I started doing TTRPG stuff, because you have to do it. You have to know how to use all of these like things, even if it's not like the Adobe suites, like DaVinci Pro or DaVinci Resolve. I mean, stuff like that. Audacity, my God, Audacity. Yeah.
It's so true though, because it's tapping into all of those different areas that you need, right?
Yeah.
And I love that, like, you're talking and we've got an artist, Tristan. What's your perspective of the flip side of that? You're the artist that they come to say, hey, take this thing that's in my head and put it on paper.
Well, I will say that is a fairly new experience for me to do with anything more than just someone saying, "Hey, this would be cool," in a completely, unrelated way, just like something off of the top of their head or something. But in a professional capacity, that is very new for me. But I think I'm fortunate because most of the people I get that from, those things that are in their head that they want to be visualized. The people who do that with me seem to have already a great amount of like inspiration in their mind. So it's not this it's not like pulling teeth trying to get what it is they want out of it. They're great at telling me what it should look like. It's just a matter of honestly time, most of it. uh, but for me, I think it's honestly more rewarding when somebody tells me that they have this idea, like our creative director, Henry. He will frequently come up with an idea for how something should look, or a new creature, or scene or something for something, and he'll tell it to me. And for me, that's more rewarding, having the ability to show him what it looks like after he's given me those instructions, than for me to just have an idea of my own and try and express it.
Nice.
Because they have this pre-existing thought, and the satisfaction of like actually providing that to them, it's huge.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love how, we're all passionate about what we do.
Mhm.
And you can see that, like, it comes out as you're talking, you can hear that. So
Yeah.
the joy that we're getting in all of this isn't just the play, it's the creation of the play.
Right.
And for that, I want to jump to Jonny a little bit, because having been, on the other side of showing up and saying, how do I even play this game, right? Like, because there's all these different ones. When you first step into it,
Yeah.
it's different. It's the first time for somebody all the time. So that process of helping people and working with them, collaborating with them to get that story going, and then stepping into that role and spending 3 hours of time with somebody while you're putting that together.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that one of the reasons why I like doing the video tutorials and stuff like that, and the videos that I, end up posting on TikTok and all of that stuff, is because I know that for me with ADHD, reading is one of the most difficult things for me to do, especially when it's a very dense rules related thing. I mean, I know like a lot of the rules from D&D, but I haven't read any of the books. I've just watched people and learned through listening to videos and tutorials and stuff like that, where it's like, oh, that's what a perception check is. Cool. All right, put that in my head and keep going through that. I mean, I ran my first D&D game again without reading the book. Maybe like 2 sessions into it, I was like, oh, I got this. Yeah, for sure, I got this. And so I made it up like 5 minutes on the spot, and then we just played it. Like that's how, ADHD. I'm not able to read. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to make these video things, make it easy, simple, and super, try and make it as quick as possible, but still you have all the information to get going. So that's kind of the whole thing behind that. That's why I like doing that. And then, actually then taking that and then putting on a whole like game or stream or whatever that ends up being. That's like, that is where, again, going back to what I had talked about before, where I learned by seeing how it's played. I can talk about the rules, but sometimes it's just you need to see how it works first before you can actually connect it. Oh, that's what rolling with fear means in Daggerheart. Okay, gotcha. Stuff like that. So I specifically for Daggerheart and also Candela, I mainly made those streams and those stories specifically for how to play. I specifically chose for Daggerheart the quick start adventure that's included in the open beta packet, because I wanted people to be able to see that video, and then in your situation, you were there and you did it.
Yeah.
That is exactly why I chose to do that one instead of a homebrew one, because I have a bunch of ideas of things that I could run, but I wanted to do that one because of that reason, where I wanted to bring people in. Like it's not as hard as you think it is. I feel like there's this like this pressure that a lot of GMs feel when, comparing themselves to Matt Mercer or Brennan Lee Mulligan or any of the great GMs out there that everybody knows, Quiddy, everybody. It's not that hard. And also it's not that deep. Like, it doesn't need to be this huge theatrical thing. Like, you could just play a game with your friends. You don't have to have like a travel sequence every single time that you're going from one city to another and have everybody talking to each other for 5 hours at a long rest or anything like that. It's a game. So
Look,
that's
my table would look that cool too if I had Dimension 20's budget. That's
100%. I get that. If that was my job, it'd be completely different. But I mean, you can only do with what you have.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you just said it, right? We're just player on a table. And I think that's where people get stuck, right? They don't even like, there's going to be people that are going to listen to this and they're not even connecting necessarily with the specifics of what we're talking about, because they haven't made that leap yet to go in and play a role playing game, because they don't understand, what that connection, what that means, like what it even sounds like. And I think really in its simplicity, it goes all the way back to when we were kids and we would just play. You'd pick up, I mean, I had Star Wars figures, so you pick them up and you'd whatever, and you create this entire world with these toys that you had, and you'd have friends over, or you'd make up a game, or you'd be outside and I'll go climb that tree, you go over here and do this or whatever, right? That's what we're doing as adults. That's essentially what we're doing when we role play, but we're taking it to the next level when we do it.
Yeah.
And I think the idea of utilizing it for specifically to, like in this case, we're talking about bringing joy forward, like to specifically go in there with the intent that I want to add some more joy in my life or some healing. And I think it happens without us even realizing it. And you end up writing the 1200 woods, which is specifically for mental health and specifically about some things that you were going through, Taylor, that brought you to this space of saying that this is how I'm going to process. And like really that's the underlying theme behind everything that we're doing is that we're processing when we're there. And the beauty of it is we're doing it with other humans, sometimes that we just met and that we're just playing this game with. And we're doing it with this like underlying respect and kindness and intent to be in a space together and just have some fun. And I think there's so much power behind just that aspect of it, but we don't talk about it or see it enough because there's a whole group of people who haven't made that step over to say, "Oh yeah, okay, that looks fun." They just see I don't know how to do it, which is
Mhm.
why I love the
Yeah.
easy sessions that I mean, I did last night was my first time jamming. And I've been like
First time ever too?
first time first time ever.
That's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. And so I'm generally a person who's like, yeah, yeah, sure, fuck it, I can do it, right? Like I'm just, whatever for
Same.
whatever it is. I just say yes and I figure shit out later. Like that's just
Yep.
the general MO, right? So that's kind of what happened is Daggerheart came out and I was like all in, got the pre-beta, went through all that stuff and again, it's just that like I'm a little kid. A new game has come out. Let us check it
Mhm.
out. Like it's
Yep.
it's that energy. And the people that don't get it, they see you looking at, I mean, I'm 52, so like I don't act my age according to some, but what does that mean? Right? Like that's kind of the argument. Like we're supposed to be doing this. Like this is part of our nature, right? To go do this stuff.
Right.
And that's what happened is um in the community you see people doing the things and it's such an inspiring community in general. Anyone in that creator space, whether you're an artist or a writer or you're making games, whatever it is in that creator space, there seems to be this just overwhelming support ecosystem where people want to be kind, they want to lift each other up, they want to celebrate each other in general. And it's that type of energy that really got me to a point where I was like, sure, yeah, whatever, I can do that. And I'm a storyteller by nature. I mean, my background is in broadcast, and so that I did that for years, and I'm a writer, and so like I'm a storyteller. So that's essentially what you're doing as a GM. You're just telling a story and taking people through, where they want to go. Basically, you're kind of guiding them, and in my holistic side, that's what I'm doing. I'm guiding people through, and so that aspect of breaking it down to its simplicity and just letting go of all of the rules, which I think is why I specifically went to Daggerheart to do this first, because when I picked up the book, because I also like you, like it gets dense, and I'm just like, can we just play it and I'll figure it out while we play it, so which is I encourage people to just do life like that. Like stop
Mhm.
overthinking everything, don't don't hold yourself back from
Make
experiencing the
mistakes.
joy.
Make mistakes.
Yeah, make
There's such a
mistakes.
huge stigma against making mistakes, which I mean, I'm the pot calling the kettle black here because I'm a perfectionist and I need to have everything perfect before I release it everywhere. So take this with a grain of salt, but like just make mistakes. There's no right way to run a game. And I think that's one of the things that like, I know Matt has talked about this quite often. Matt Mercer has talked about this quite often because of the fact of the Matt Mercer effect that we were talking about earlier, where it's
Right.
like you bring a unique part to this gameplay. You running this as you is never going to be something that Matt Mercer or any other GM is gonna bring to the table. It might be similar, but you will always have your own unique style. And I think that's something that people just need to accept. One, that they're not going to be Matt Mercer, they're going to be themselves. And two, accept that they're going to make mistakes and it's going to be super messed up when you first start. It's going to happen. Everybody thinks, oh, I'm going to do this. No, because right when you think that you have everything planned out, that's when the players decide, I'm just going to take a left turn here and just screw everything else that you have just planned for. We're going this way. And then that's when you're like, oh, okay. This is GMing. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is life, right? Like that's the whole point. That's life. So I just think there's so much value. It prepares the individual for what's happening out in life. It gives you more skills to work with while you're doing it, you know, as you get into that space. Taylor, tell us a little bit about the mindset that you were in when you wrote 1,200 words. What was, because I
1,200
I know there's a specific
was written so originally it was part of the 200 word RPG challenge, which unfortunately is now no longer happening. I think they kind of went dormant over COVID and just called it good, which is a little bit too bad, but it was something that I enjoyed participating in. So the premise of 200 word RPG is just that you write the entirety of an RPG, playable, complete, in 200 words or less. I have obsessive compulsive disorder, so I wanted to write it in exactly 200 words. And instead of writing one, I wrote 5. But you're not allowed to submit 5 to the competition, the challenge. It is voted on and judged and stuff, but I wasn't particularly worried about that part. It's just, the ability to say, I submitted this thing. You're only allowed to submit 2 and talk about overthinking. Don't overthink everything is like, should have been the name of the memoir. But I could not select which 2 of the 5 I had written that I wanted to do. So none of them got submitted. And instead I published this. It's called 1,200 words because it is exactly 1,200 words, including the text on the cover. I wrote an additional 200 words to explain what I had done there. But the idea is each individual game is represents kind of how my brain was working at that time. It was earlier on in therapy after when I first started therapy, I had gotten a diagnosis for obsessive compulsive disorder and general anxiety disorder. And I was in a stage of kind of like looking back through my life and being like, yeah, that makes sense. But it was before I started getting medication or prescriptions to do that. So I was still in the identifying, kind of reconciling stage of that journey, starting to build up the tools that were going to be helpful. And then eventually I found that one of those tools was medication. And, that's always a little bit of a journey, but then I found the balance that worked for me, and it just kind of been pretty stable then. Every once in a while, I'll revisit 1,200 words and be like, wow, that was what my brain was doing at the time. Because each one is not all negative, because a lot of times when you have various mental health things, and Jonny, like you were saying with the ADHD, sometimes it feels like a superpower. Sometimes it's the worst thing in the world, and you're like, why won't you let me function, body or brain? Like these are things that I need to do. It's like, not today. And so through those games, like the first one is called "You Have Thoughts, and Those Thoughts Beget Other Thoughts," and the entire thing is generating thoughts, and thoughts will create goals, and goals can turn into I don't have it in front of me, but the idea is that any sort of goal or hope or thought you have can spiral out of control into more and more thoughts and plans, and you just get overwhelmed sometimes with all of these things that you are juggling and considering and thinking about. The artist that I worked with on that, Mercedes Acosta, also has obsessive compulsive disorder, works in a different way, but we were able to find some common ground. And their art coming in the framework of each game was really important for those visuals. This one uses train tracks, and I used to think of my brain, instead of having a train of thought, it felt like a whole yard, right, with all of these different trains. And I have this train of thought running this way, but I'm thinking about like 10 other things. And so that first one was just an example of how, not necessarily messy, because everything felt like it was on the track, just how kind of chaotic. It also kind of speaks to a place of being a little bit more dark humor sardonic. I've gotten a better relationship with my dark humor now. But the final bit of the game is there is no end. You can stop playing whenever you want because it's just a game. And that is both, true in terms of like, yeah, it's just a game. You can start playing, but like also to kind of speak to the bit of like, this is the way my brain works. You can tap out because you're not in my brain. I can't, because that's my brain. So that was a little bit, I don't know, bitter in a way. I used to be a lot more bitter, but then I've chilled out, and I think that's a better place to be.
Yeah. Well, that's that personal growth that happens, right? And I'm a big believer that there are no negative emotions. They're just emotions. With so many different mental health disorders too, like there's a stigma behind all of that. It's whatever you have in whatever circumstance that your brain is working, that's what you've got. So we just need tools to work with it so that we can function in society, essentially. As someone who also has ADHD, I do think of it as a superpower in most cases. And I think that in general, that's what we're doing. Like, you wrote this game specifically for you to process while you were writing the game, right? This was a whole process for you to go through this, and years later you're going back to it, and it's still a learning tool for you, to see what your life was like, how you have grown from it, how you have developed from that state. And I don't think we do enough of that as humans. Like, we don't give ourselves enough credit for the journey that we've taken, where there's so much comparison that happens. And so many of us overthink. It's easy to say something. It's a lot more difficult to actually put the actions behind it. Because we were talking about this too, I'm just going to read this first part, just in case it was something that you wanted to address. But it says, you have goals. These are large, ongoing tasks to maintain or strive for. You have anxieties. These are concerns, insecurities, or unproductive thoughts. You have inspirations. These are ideas and hopes you want to pursue.
Yeah, so those are the three core mechanics of the game, but the whole point is how like interwoven those are. Goals that don't get accomplished turned into anxieties, or inspiration, or like anxieties that you're able to address can turn into inspirations, or working on anxieties can be a goal. And those elements can be so intertwined.
Wow, that's a really cool game.
Agreed. That's awesome. That's a great way of thinking of that, and putting that down somewhere.
It's such a powerful tool, and that's only one of the games that you get.
Yeah.
There are more. So so I kind of want to throw in there too a little bit of information about Through the Stars. I pulled a little bit so that people can hear about that. Through the Stars is a storytelling science fiction tabletop RPG set in the Prime Originate galaxy. Gather your friends, assemble a crew to choose your place within a galaxy. And you can talk more about what that is, but I feel like that's what we're all doing.
Yeah, right. So I will say, writing credit to Henry. I didn't write anything for the. Not that I don't write myself, but definitely not for this. I would be awful at writing any kind of copy for games. But yeah, so for Through the Stars, the whole idea that we had when we made it was honestly it's a lot simpler and a lot less inspired than Taylor, but our
Comparison
idea was
is the thief of joy. No
that's
comparing.
true. That is true. Yeah. But our idea was just, well, Henry and Han's idea was just to create a tabletop game that was similar to, I think Blades in the Dark was one of the big inspirations for them. But they wanted to create a game that was like that, but not so crunchy, and it was more about the having fun with your friends aspect of playing than keeping track of the numbers. So they tried to simplify things without making it lame, essentially. Like, you still have fun, you still have mechanics that matter and are impactful, but you don't have complex math getting in the way of that fun without it also feeling like you're just, a god amongst men, and I think they did a really good job with the mechanics. We played it a ton to test, and when it comes to balance, I'm not the guy, but they are, and I think that Han, who is our main, play tester slash game designer slash genius behind the curtain kind of guy. He did a fantastic job at balancing it all, but I just did all the art and design. So I made it look pretty.
I'm going to go over there and remove the word
Do the
just from
art.
your vocabulary.
Yeah, we got it. You and me on the same page right here. I was like, just? Excuse me?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm sorry. I saw the art.
I'm looking at it right now. It looks awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. Yeah. And for those of you listening in or watching us on YouTube, you can visit and get a little bit more detail about these games. But I just want to give you kind of an overview. Through the Stars is you're in space, and everybody has a different crew position that they take.
Yes.
That they are responsible for when they go out into the world and do these things on the ship. So you are by nature a member of a crew and responsible for something, in addition to creating your character and having an overall story arc and that kind of thing. But
I love that.
what I
That's super
really
cool.
love about what I really love about it is it forces, in a way, that collaboration, and there are severe consequences when one member of the crew isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing for their particular job. And I think that's there's a lot of life lessons in that too. And you can see causality, you see cause and effect. If I don't go do this thing, then this is going to happen. And so what ends up happening in game, specifically for games like this where everybody has their own role, if somebody can't perform that role, you have to get creative as a crew in order to do that thing that person is responsible for. And so what ends up happening is you end up helping each other more, and you end up going above and beyond to do the things for each other, again, which I think is very beneficial for someone who is in need of that. And so if you're going into a game and you're really having a tough time in life, and you're put into this situation where other people are working with you, and you're part of a team and you're working towards an end goal, it's inspiring. You leave that feeling good.
Yeah. I can definitely agree with that. Both for tabletop games in general, but especially through the Stars. That was a huge part of it, was making sure that in the roles that they made. And granted, most of this was me listening to them talk about it as I was just, chugging away at the art. But
own your awesomeness in this, Tristan.
Okay, but yeah, they wanted to make sure that we kept the feeling of I'm a badass while without getting rid of the team aspect of it, because that seems to be something that is almost universally left up to the DM in most tabletop games, is whether or not you're focusing on how awesome one player is versus the whole group. Where they tried to build it into the structure of the game, where you have your role and you can make that role badass without needing to remember to cut that out for the players as the DM. Like it's just built in, and you can just emphasize as you play and go through the players' roles and focus on how they did their role within the ship and how that was awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to switch gears just a little bit here. We opened up. Taylor opened up a little bit, and told us, a little bit about some personal stuff that led to the game. On a personal level, for both of you, and I'll let you guys decide who wants to jump in first. But on a personal level, just what has being a part of this community done for you, and just in general, utilizing these tools where you're playing in this capacity, not just playing a game, but specifically role play games. What has that done for you beneficial?
I'll let you take the lead on that, Jonny. Sorry.
Sure. Yeah. I was never a theater kid. I was I wanted to be. I never knew that, but I was very much in that like masculine type of mindset. That's what I was taught when I was younger. That's what I should have been. I was into sports and all of that stuff. But now looking back, I'm like, damn, I really wish that I was in theater actually, because that's what I'm doing now. I feel like I would have really liked it back then, but that's, it happened. It is what it is. It made me who I am now. But that sense of wanting to entertain and wanting to collaborate with people to create stories never went away. That was always something there. And I'm the friend that would always like tell stories and all of that stuff. Like, what happened last weekend? I'd be the one that's like, this is what happened, and throwing all of the emotional stuff and making the ups and downs actually feel like ups and downs, like as if you were there kind of thing. So that was always who I was, and being able to then translate that into TTRPGs, running a game, that's something that like I need as a person, as a human being. I need to be able to do that. And there are other ways that you can do that, but for me, there's no better way to do so than GMing for a table, or even playing for a table, because like at the end of the day, this is a collaborative storytelling hobby. The GM is setting up a world, sure, but you also have a lot of control over where the story goes, what's in the world, because you have to make your character and the backstory, and they're not going to be able to come up with everything. I mean, like Taylor had said earlier, the GM you can't create a huge story in a vacuum. So that's where all the players come into play and add to this story that everybody is, constantly adding to and being a part of. I think that is one of the biggest things from this hobby that like is so important to me. It's like, if I didn't have it, there'd just be this hole that is never filled. And it's just like the perfect puzzle piece,
Perfectly said.
For me, I had somewhat of a similar experience in that I was never a theater kid, but I seemed to attract a lot of theater kids to become friends with. So I guess maybe in heart or spirit, but for me, I apparently started in tabletop games before I knew what tabletop games kind of were. I had never played D&D before or anything like it, and in high school, I was really into writing and world building, and I started to entertain the concept of creating components to worlds and stories that I was making that would be like playable, but I wasn't able to make a video game yet. And so I thought, well, I could do something that, would be like a text adventure or something like that. And that kind of just naturally grew into it. And for me, getting into D&D and then other tabletop games and systems has been a very weird experience, mostly because I had only ever met other DMs 3 years ago. I had never met a single person that had ever played a tabletop game before as a DM up until 3 years ago, and that was Henry and Han. And me and Henry were friends from high school that hadn't talked for a long time, and just reconnected randomly. But so for me, it was very much like an isolated experience from the rest of the community, where it became a way for me to like let an outlet for me to let my ADHD run wild and my OCD kind of take the reins on when it comes to writing and making experiences for people to run through. And joining the community is still kind of fresh for me, but I will say I don't think that there is another community I've encountered online that has the same universal drive to create. And that for me is empowering.
Whoa, it's my favorite word. Yeah, I love that. And I think for me, that's the most important part of anything that I'm doing when I step into it, is to be able to offer an opportunity for empowerment for anyone that is in that space. And I think what we all do.
And GMing, the first time that you GM'd was recently. Like, come on, that's like what GMs do. That is the point of the GM, is to empower the players to do things in a story that you're all creating. You need to GM more.
Well, it's already started. The floodgates are open. I'm still running through all the stuff in my head that's happening to the characters that happened last night. And
it's addicting.
Yeah. Well,
I'll tell you that.
And that's
oh
it.
my God, is it?
Yeah. I've spent my entire life being in that space, whatever I'm doing, empowerment, inspiration, like that aspect of, just helping people see the magic that is inside them and bringing that forward, no matter what I'm doing. And then my background, has always been a storyteller. That's what I've done. So I'm a storyteller in all aspects of my life, basically. And even with that, I have, I've been playing role play games for quite a while, but I never jumped into the GM. It felt overwhelming. I was concerned about so many different factors, and I'm not somebody who really worries about that stuff. Like I said before, I could just say, the hell with it, and figure it out. But for whatever reason with this, it seemed more. And I think it was actually you. And it was just kind of like an off the cuff thing or whatever, but it was just hearing it a different way, which is I think what happens in life, right? We have to hear things different ways. And it just struck me as I'm just telling a story with other people who are telling a story, and I'm doing it in a way that I'm going to do it because that's who I am. And I don't have to follow, just like in life, I don't have to follow any of the rules that somebody has put down. I can just jump in and do that. And so that's kind of what did it for me. I was like, what, let's do it. And with it being Daggerheart, the main reason for that was having read through it, I just felt like they're just setting this up to be exactly the kind of system that I want to be working in, because it is specifically encouraging people to work together and build that story collaboratively, which is the most empowering thing. If we're doing that in a game or in life in any capacity, if you are collaborating with the other person instead of just inflicting upon the other person, you're just going to get so much out of it, and so are they. And I do think that this community is ripe for that.
Right. And like specifically talking about Daggerheart in the Quick Start Adventure, they bake in, ask your players what is special about this forest, what is super cool that they notice as they're bringing the carriage through the Sable Woods. Like what do they see? And that, I mean, for me, if I was a player, that would be super exciting to be able to add such an important, I mean, like, and it might not be like super important, but it feels important at the time. You're like, ooh, I get to write this part? Cool.
Yeah.
And then you get the spotlight. You get to bring something into it. And then that's where like that collaborative part comes into play. And then you as the GM, you're like, cool, yes, and then you can just start just bouncing ideas off of each other.
Yeah.
And what happens next? Yeah.
Well, I think that I know very little about Daggerheart. I know how excited Shannon's been about Daggerheart, but about the mechanics itself, I don't know. But I do love that, and I think there's such a space for that player input. I mean, you see it in practically any game when a player is writing their backstory and their character has family and their character has that, because a lot of times the system only makes space for that playground for the player. They're like, okay, what do I get to create? I get to create this character's life. But when you open it up, when you say like, what is important, you open the store, what do you find, like what's the most important thing to you, those sorts of things can be so inspiring, because that collaboration is just so ready to be there.
And of course the infamous words of how do you want to do this is
I got to say it.
One of the best ways to just turn the table and be like, you have the spotlight, you get to do this. What do you want to do? How does this happen? I think that's one of like the greatest ways to also shed that or share that spotlight with the rest of the players as well. Yeah.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, I was basically the 5-year-old. The inner 5-year-old was full force as I did get to, and like as I'm saying it, I'm like, this is amazing. Like,
this is right.
But this is right. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, and to your point, it's because we're empowering people to be able to do the things, but helping them do it, because I think there's that step they don't want to take. But if you take their hand and you walk them over to it, then they're going to go and they're going to be excited about it, and they're going to feel good that you asked them to do it. And to your point about like doing that character creation, that's what happens. You get all, and I did this as a player when I first played. I got so excited about that initial character creation. And then I was like, okay, now what? Like, I want to keep going with this. But instead, I was just acting all through it, which is great. And I love that. But it's not the same thing as describing what's happening and talking, that's a whole different level. And we did that a lot last night. It was every person that was there took part in developing what they were in and what that story was like. And I just had a blast. And I mean, I hope they had as much fun as I did, but
I guarantee they did. If you as the GM had that much fun, I guarantee the players did, because the GM doesn't have fun if the players don't have fun. It is like a very obvious thing. Yeah.
It's a collaborative thing, right? And so I think that's it. So I appreciate all of you being on here with me today and having this. I feel like we could talk for a long time about a lot of different things. But I think this is a good time to stop it. But as we go off, I'd like to have each of you just remind everybody who you are, what your company is, and where they can find you online for those people who are going to be listening to the podcast and won't see that information. Taylor, let's start with you.
Sure. Again, I'm Taylor Currey. You can find me at whimsymachine.media or at whimsymachine on most platforms. I was part of the Twitter exodus, so I'm on Mastodon and Blue Sky and Threads, and oh my god, it's a lot. But I'm there. I've got that Whimsy Machine SEO pretty much on lock. Whimsymachine.media is the URL. I've got as well as Drive Through RPG or HEO. So there I am. I've got books all over the place for you to find.
Thank you. Tristan, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Tristan. LatenArcana.com, or you can check out, I guess, my Instagram, which is I need to tend to, but that is just at Leighton Arcana, or sorry, at Leighton Architect, and then I would say you could also find me on pretty much everything else, but I don't really post anything anywhere else other than on Instagram sometimes. So that
it's all good. And Jonny?
Yeah, I'm Jonny with TalkingXP at TalkingXP anywhere. Mostly Threads right now, and then also TikTok. I'm trying to get more into posting on Instagram, but it's hard to manage all of these social media stuff. Anyways, YouTube as well, where I have like I said, those tutorials on how to play Candela, how to play Dagger. I will have how to play Daggerheart there once I'm done editing everything, along with TikTok. How to do all that stuff is there as well. I run Ravenloft Misfits, which is a Curse of Strahd actual play. It's Misfits, so if you're looking for it, that's why you might not be able to find it. But yeah, we're on like episode 80. We just did 83 last night, and it's getting to the end here. So you have a lot of content if you'd like to go into that. But outside of that, I'm open, and my DMs are usually open. So send me a message. I'll say what's up, especially on Threads. I'm very active on Threads. But yeah, that's me.
I'm also a lover of Threads. That's where I like to hang out.
That was not the one I
Same.
expected to like pick up, but
See, and there were so many happening. Like I remember one that died. I can't remember. It was like Hive. That one just died.
Co-host
Blue
is pretty
Sky
cool.
came out, but you had a code. You had to have a code for that.
Oh yeah.
Mastodon, I didn't really understand when I first got in there, and I was like, I can't understand it first getting in here. I know for a fact there's going to be hundreds of thousands of people that are going to be like, nah,
Yeah.
fuck that. Sorry, screw that. I don't know if we can curse on here. I'm so sorry.
I think I started it. So
dope, sweet. All right. Yeah, a bunch of people are going to say that. And then Instagram came out with Threads, and I was like, this is going to happen. I guarantee it. I know it because Instagram is the one making it. And I'm glad that it did, because it's a great community, a great TTRPG community there.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's definitely bringing a lot of joy into my life. It connected me with all y'all. So
Yeah,
there we go. Yeah, I jumped in pretty late. Well, again, I appreciate you all being on here and having this conversation in general about the benefits of collaborative storytelling. And it's always interesting to get all of the different perspectives and see how it's helping. And we appreciate what you're doing to help the new people get in, because that is so important for them to jump in and have as much fun as we're having. Thank you all for listening to us today on the Bring Joy Forward podcast, and we'll see you next time. You have been listening to the Bring Joy Forward podcast. Conversations to explore, heal, and grow. You can find us at bringjoyforward.com, and we'd love to have you join us in our community Facebook group. Thank you for listening.